vengeful spirits and guardians to defend you on your way to reincarnation. We often live to do good because bad things result in consequences. But do you ever wonder how exactly are they weighed in the afterlife? We'll be analyzing how they do that in the Korean movie along with the gods, the two worlds. Spoiler alert, we'll be talking about the movie in full detail as we determine ethical concepts behind the plot and the characters' actions. So, watch at your own risk. Before we start off the video, let's meet the rest of the gang that will journey with us through the 7 hells.
The order of the trial is determined by King Yomra himself, who judges your sins from lightest to heaviest.
Did I hear money? Cash? Money?
뭐 안 드시던데요? 회계는 내놔보세요.
선생님, 이번 재판에 필요지가 있어요.
Isn't that beautiful betrayal? Now that you've met the team, let's get on with the video. Along with the Gods, the Two Worlds is a South Korean fantasy action film that centers on a firefighter Kim Jong nobly saving a girl's life from a fiery building. This, though, ultimately leads to his own death. For his sacrifice, he is recognized as a paragon, and he will be defended through the 7 hells by his guardians in order to reincarnate. He has 3 guardians to lead him through his journey: Han Hon-mek, Lee Juk-chun, and Gang-rim. They defend Kim Jong through each of his trials. The trials are held in significant hells with corresponding gods to rule them. There are 7 hells in total: Hell of Murder, Indolence, Deceit, Injustice, Betrayal, Violence, and Filial Impiety. The ruler that oversees all of hell is Yomra, the king of hell. Other key characters that should be taken note of are Kim Jong's brother and mother. It turns out his brother Soo-hong, who serves in the military, is also dead and has morphed into a vengeful spirit. Their mother is left alone in the living world, and Soo-hong's spirit is wreaking havoc in both the living and the afterlife. The people responsible for Soo-hong's death are actually his close comrades in the military, Private Wong Jong-yong and Lieutenant Park Moo-shin. We'll discuss later on what would compel them to be responsible for their colleague's death. This video will look into the ethical concepts at work in the actions made, reasoning behind them, and how they were ultimately judged. Now that you've been briefed with the gist and characters of the story, let's get on to analyzing.
After his death, he is greeted by 3 Grim Reapers. They inform him that he is a paragon, meaning he is a person with no moral faults. But he still needs to undergo the 7 trials. If he is acquitted, he will be reincarnated ASAP. Because Kim Jong is deemed a noble soul, he passed the hell of betrayal and injustice without even a trial. Now, let's go to our first stop, the hell of murder. But why? We thought he's a paragon. How did he commit murder then? That's exactly what Hewan Mak asked. Many are sentenced guilty in this hell. This trial will test one's innocence regarding killing other people. Not only first-hand killing, but this will also look into account the indirect murders. Ja-hong was accused of indirectly murdering his colleague by leaving him behind the burning building. 2 factors: Ja-hong's indecisiveness and desire for his own safety. If he acted in time, the victim could have survived. Therefore, this could be seen as an indirect murder, says the prosecutor. However, the guardians emphasize that even though Kim failed to rescue his colleague, he saved 8 other lives in the fire accident, employing utilitarianism's greatest good for the greatest number. Is failing to save 1 life worth it if 8 other lives were saved instead? That is the ethical question posed by this scene.
이제 판관들께 묻겠습니다. 피고는 자신과 일면식도 없는 8명의 목숨을 구해내느라 자신과 가장 가까웠던 단 1명, 그 동료의 목숨은 구하지 못했습니다. 그렇다면 이 둘의 목숨의 무게는 어떻게 다른지?
The god of murder hell dropped the indirect murder charge against Kim Ja-hong. How do we weigh the moral value of human lives then? That's something to think about. Next, the trial for indolence. This trial will determine how well the deceased lived his life. Kim Jong has been working hard all his life, but he said that he has been doing all those jobs for money. He was compelled to sacrifice his noble life and put himself into dangerous situations not to live each day to the fullest, but to earn money. Of course, this angered the goddess of indolence. You served a terrible god. I will make you feel sorry for choosing the money god, said the goddess. But Gangrim said, he did serve the money god. And for that reason, his true day off was the day after his death. Money was everything for him. I implore you to accept this soul that only looked after his poverty-stricken family. He was working every moment of his life to pay for his sick mother's treatment and for his young brother's law school. That moving line of Gangnam will make us think. Is hard work automatically discredited if it is done for money or a certain reward? Kim Jong worked for money that would provide all the needs of his family. Thus, we can judge the actions as right if they promote happiness. With some of Jong's actions seeming to be selfish, they were in fact for the intention of arriving at a good outcome for others. How do you use good deeds to justify immoral behavior? For whom was the act done for? Can the good deeds really outweigh the bad ones? These are just few of the questions related to their decisions. The trials were judged through situation ethics and in a utilitarian lens. With further defense from Gangrim and Dok John, Jahong's situations were deliberated and analyzed as to why he was compelled to conduct his actions. Most of his actions saved the lives of others besides his own, thus bringing greater happiness for a greater amount of people.
On to the third trial, which is a trial for deceit. It's also worth mentioning that ghouls attacked Jahong and the guardians on the way to the court. Unfortunately, this change indicated that a member of Jahong's family had died and become a vengeful spirit. Gangrim left the party to investigate as the rest proceeded. They managed to reach the court and there found out that Kim wrote letters to his late colleague's daughter as if they were from her father. On top of this, he also sent letters to his mother that hid the truth. Later on, it was revealed that Jahong's intention for writing those fake letters was to comfort them, not hurt them. With this, we can then ask ourselves questions such as, is it ethical to lie and deceive other people for their own sake? Is lying forgivable if it was to protect someone? These questions were answered through a situation ethics and a utilitarian lens. The trial is judged by assessing the situation and using the moral theory of utilitarianism. A good action seeks to maximize pleasure and reduce pain. This can then be observed from Jahong's true intention from writing the fake letters to his co-worker's daughter and to his mother, as the letters helped the grieving daughter cope with loss and also helped his mother recover faster. Overall, the outcomes resulted in greater happiness for a greater amount of people, and ultimately outweighing the fact that in essence, they were still acts of deceit. On the other hand, we also got to see ethical egoism and intuitive ethics as shown by Lieutenant Park for choosing to hide the murder of Suhong for his own self-interest. We can liken ethical egoism to psychological or rational egoism, wherein an act made on basis of ego is validated by, well, if it's rational or natural to be egoist, then it's ethical, which would be a weak basis for ethics. Lieutenant Park abandoned his social ethics to ensure his promotion, all for the sake of his family. Intuitive ethics is seen where his immediate reaction was to defend himself, which meant covering up the murder. The forming of ethical decisions was redirected because one's intuitions are just like any other source of direct justification. They can be deceptive. In fact, One of the points that utilitarians support is that our moral intuitions can't always be trusted. Unfortunately, we can't really say that Dong-yeon is completely innocent either. He did follow his superior's order to keep quiet about the incident. Instead of coming clean and confessing to the crime, he only felt compelled to hint at Soo-hong's mother as to where her son's body was, and then to attempt suicide to escape the guilt. The situation poses questions such as, can good deeds outweigh the bad ones? Hinting the location may never be enough of a good deed to outweigh the blood on his hands. His suicide attempt may even be his own way of paying for the life he took. Dong-yeon being consumed by guilt is rooted in the fact that he killed a good man. Through ethical absolutism, where universal standards are the basis, he sees his action as murder. This would make us wonder what price there is to pay for when messing with the course of nature.
And we're down to the last two trials. But before we proceed, we are going to talk about Gangrim and how he broke the afterlife laws by granting humans favors and refusing to burn a vengeful spirit.
수채는 판에서 뭐 하시려고? 염해 주시려고? 아니 김수홍 여기 묻혔다 알려주시려고?
예 어머니. 아무것도 모르고 평생 찾아 헤맬 예 어머니. 제사만이로 지내게 해주자.
In the afterlife, there is a rule that bodies of vengeful spirits should be incinerated, and no one shall ever interfere with humans in the living world. But Gangrim broke this rule when he chose to save Dong-yeon from taking his own life instead of just burning Soo-hong's body right from the moment he met him. And because interfering also meant repercussions in the afterlife, the guardians faced troubles in the trials. Well, should Gangrim just stick to his duties as a guardian? Or should he do the right thing even if he has to meddle with the living world? Let me know your comments below. Because based on what he did, it appears that he acted out of Machiavellian egoism. He believed that straying away a bit from the conventional standards will achieve the right outcome. He defied his duty to obliterate the vengeful spirit, acted on his own accord, and managed to save Dong-yeon from his suicide attempt as well as Soo-hong from being deprived of reincarnation. Now let's move on to the last two trials in the hell of violence and hell of filial impiety, aka the most intense among the seven. Here is a big revelation. Kim Ja-hong tried to kill not only their mother, he was also planning to kill his brother and himself. I know what you're thinking. Why would Ja-hong do that when he's out there trying to save other people's lives for years? Shocking, right? But he did that for a reason. Ja-hong's family struggled in life when they were young. They do not have the means to live a comfortable life. Their mother has a disability too and can provide enough for their family's needs. So to save his family from further suffering, Ja-hong tried to kill all of them. However, when he's about to do so, Soo-hong appeared in the scene, and that's when he beat him up. That's heartbreaking. But we can't really blame Ja-hong though. He just acted out of situation ethics. His mother is terminally ill and his brother is malnourished. He assessed the situation, and based on it, he thought it would be best to end their suffering. But on the other hand, why did he not try to find a job and work for them first? Why is killing the first solution he thought of? At this point, do you think Kim Ja-hong passed the trial or not? I bet you're thinking he did not because that's a serious crime. In the final trial, it was revealed that Ja-hong's mother was awake the night of the incident. She knew that Ja-hong wanted to kill her, but she stayed silent and pretended she knew nothing. Because of this, Ja-hong was charged guilty, but shortly after, something flashed that made the god of death decide to stop his servants from reading Ja-hong's sentence. It was a dream of Ja-hong's mother. In that dream, Soo-hong brought up what Ja-hong did in the past and how his brother spent his whole life trying to make up for what he did by providing everything they need. His mother replied, and for the first time, they heard her voice.
너희들은 아무 잘못 없어. 모든 게 다 이 못난 엄마가 잘못한 거야. 알았지, 얘들아? 엄마가 잘못했다. 미안하다. 내 아들 사랑한다. 자, 엄마.
Because their mother acknowledged how much burdened her children and forgave Jahong for trying to kill her, the god of death dropped the charges against Kim Jahong. He passed all 7 trials and was granted immediate reincarnation.
So, to summarize and reiterate all the ethical principles mentioned so far, the trials were not looking at the crimes from a strictly black and white perspective. Questions of justice included fact-checking and careful consideration of those facts in order to assess the situation. The trial for murder employed utilitarianism. The second trial, which was for indolence, was solved with utilitarianism and situation ethics. The same is true with the trial for deceit. The trial for injustice, as well as the trial for betrayal, were both passed. Easy. Meanwhile, the joint trial for violence and filial impiety was approached with situation ethics. The trials weren't the only ethical dilemmas featured in the film. We also have Soo Hong's murder. Lieutenant Park, Gang Rim, and Private Dong Yun all dealt with this situation using different ethical principles as shown on the screen.
Our first honorable mention will be Hyunnek, one of the 3 guardians. Hyunnek was so adamant about Gangnam to abide by their roles as guardians. We can classify his choice of playing by the rules as deontological, or simply basing one's morals by duty ethics. He is a guardian, so he was abiding by the rules when he was so adamant about Soo-hong's vengeful spirit being exorcised, even if that meant depriving him of reincarnation. Our second honorable mention was spotted by our teammate Lester. He brought up the fact that the Guardians' very being could be analyzed with an existential ethical theory. The Guardians don't really remember much of their past lives, and yet they continue to carry on existing, identifying themselves as Guardians, helping souls get to their reincarnation. I was really mind-blown on this because it completely flew by me how this explains that even if they hid Soo-hong's death from Kim Jong, Gangrim was still very determined to help both brothers reincarnate. And even when all 3 Guardians' reincarnations were threatened by possibly losing the joint trial, they all still aligned with their morals to persist as Kim Jong's guardians and secure him his reincarnation. Finally, the last honorable mention. I observed how the concept of the afterlife can be analyzed from the perspective of social construct theory, where one's morality can be guided by the idea that if I do good on earth, I can get into heaven or even reincarnate. And this is not meant to invalidate or offend certain religions. I am really just giving my thoughts on the reward system that influences one's conscience. Society benefits from when one acts in goodwill, because in return, it will protect everyone else's welfare. Because when you don't, well, let's say you might end up frozen for centuries, or get thrown into a fiery pit of hell for all eternity, so yeah. And that is it for Along with the Gods, the Two Worlds. It really showcased how complex decision making and judgment can be. We could ask ourselves, would we have done the same thing, or could we have gone on a different approach? Ethics can be analyzed from various lenses, but we must let what is just to always persevere. The side of which fights for justice must prevail in the end. And that is it for our video. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you all enjoyed learning about ethics as much as we did. Bye!